back to Turning Pages, where we talk about the pages we've turned.
We are the Katies. Today's the day that we talk about the pages we turned in The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald.
We will start off our session by talking about the main characters and a character analysis.
Next up, a peek inside the life in the 20s.
And finally, we will discuss the main events and items of significance throughout the book.
But first, a note from our sponsors. Nick Carraway is the main character, and he lives next door to Gatsby, and he's also second cousins to Daisy Buchanan. Jay Gatsby is another main character who fell in love with Daisy Buchanan, and he is also a businessman with Mr. Wolfsheim. Daisy Buchanan is Gatsby's love interest, who is also married to Tom Buchanan. Daisy grew up old money and lives on East Egg. Tom Buchanan is married to Daisy. He is a businessman who came from old money, he has a mistress, and he went to college with Nick Carraway. Jordan Baker is a famous golfer and longtime best friend of Daisy Buchanan. She is also Nick's love interest. Mr. Wilson owns a gas station in the Valley of Ashes and does business with Tom Buchanan. He is also married to Myrtle. Myrtle Wilson is married to Mr. Wilson and is in an affair with Tom Buchanan. She is envious of Tom's wife, and she dies in a tragic accident. Mr. Wolfsheim is a businessman who gained his money from illegal deals. He molded Gatsby into the businessman he was throughout the story. Dan Cody was a rich, alcoholic sailor who mentored Gatsby for 5 years on his yacht. He gave some of his wealth to Gatsby when he died. Mr. Gatz is Gatsby's father. He was a poor farmer, but he always believed his son would be a great man.
New York City in the Roaring '20s was flooding with people. After the Great War, or World War I, everyone went straight there due to the high demand of business. Wall Street was booming and money was flowing into people's pockets. The stock market was on the steady rise, causing easy money to be made. With this money, people were throwing lavish parties with lots and lots of alcohol. Even though there was a ban on alcohol, people were forced to find a way around them. They created speakeasies, which were exclusive underground clubs. The ban on alcohol backfired. This caused alcohol to be extremely cheap. Because of this, bigger parties were thrown and more of them. There were some underground ones in speakeasies as well, but public parties where everyone was welcome were more popular. These parties had lots of dancing and drinking, and in the dancing, there were lots of vulgar movements because the morals of the time were low.
Alright, so starting off our discussion for The Great Gatsby, one thing that we noticed in the very beginning, I think, they also mentioned this in the movie too, was the significance of the green light at the end of Daisy's dock. So I kind of thought that was kind of important because we know that Mr. Gatsby was always like looking out for it and knowing that like, oh, this is where Daisy lives, always feeling near to her.
Like, he would go out on the end of his dock and he would gaze at it at night, and I think it seemed like, it wasn't said, but you can assume kind of that he was reminiscing about his time with Daisy and all of the great memories that he had, and wanting to be back and wanting there to be more of them, and kind of wanting to go back to how things were 5 years ago when they first met each other and they had first fallen in love.
And I know it's kind of crazy to think that at that time Gatsby didn't have any money, or he was kind of hiding behind the uniform. I know that was one of the things that they mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was he didn't really want to fall in love with Daisy because he knew the things he wanted to achieve for himself. And then I know he kind of ended up getting rich for Daisy in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And I know he had these parties, and I know that there is a quote.
Yes.
Oh gosh. Now page 83, and then there's another one as well. But on page 83, Gatsby bought that house so that Daisy would be just across the bay, again showing his wealth and kind of using it as a way to see Daisy or feel closer to her.
Mm-hmm.
But then, I know Gatsby also, later in the book, maybe a little bit off topic, but later in the book, when Gatsby finally meets Daisy again, he says that, look at this, there's a lot of clippings about you, page 99. He had a whole scrapbook basically,
Yeah.
just about Daisy.
Yeah, he kept tabs on her the entire time, and like even if he wasn't always writing her letters, like you could like especially more in the movie, and it was also mentioned in the book, like when Daisy was first getting married to Tom, that she got a letter and no one ever knew what the letter said because she like ripped it up or somehow got rid of it. But after that she was like, oh, tell him that Daisy changed her mind, and she ripped like the pearls that he gave her. And so there's a good chance that that letter was from Gatsby telling, like he probably saw the clippings and he was like, oh, wait for me, I still love you. And even, and like, I mean, she listened to him for a minute, but then like she obviously married Tom, and like I think even after that, even though Gatsby knew that she was married and she was in a like relationship and like married, he still kept tabs on her. He still had that like blind hope almost that one day they were going to end up together and rekindle their spark, kind of.
Yeah. And another thing is, like, because they lived across from each other, like across the bay, they do have the separation from them, which is the East Egg and then West Egg. Mm-hmm. And I know that's kind of a big thing too, because one side is of course the new money, the other side is the old money. Mm-hmm. They kind of have a feud between them almost in a way, because they have like these, I don't know, superstitions, like, oh, there's the person that's on the East Egg
the
side.
bootleggers.
The bootleggers.
Tom calls Gatsby. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's kind of, Gatsby was on the west side, right?
I think so.
West side was like the new money.
I actually don't know. I don't remember.
Sure.
Well, whichever way it was.
Well, like East side was more classy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
East side was classy.
Right. Yeah, and but like also on the west side, where you also had Gatsby, you also had like Nick, like the narrator, the main character, where he was not nearly as rich as Gatsby was, but he still lived on the egg, and I think it was new money, but it was also more like economic classes almost, and there were more kind of different kinds of people from different walks of life, you can say.
Okay.
Yeah. Speaking of lots of different people from different ends of life, another really important event in the book is the lunch that Nick and Gatsby have with Mr. Wolfsheim, one of Mr. Gatsby's business partners. I think it's really significant because it kind of like, it's the first time that Nick really like almost makes the connection that maybe Gatsby didn't make all of his money legally or through the most humane ways, kind of.
Yeah, there's a part in the book where he's like, oh, I thought you inherited all your money. And he was like, I think he was like, old sport, I did. But in reality, he kind of had these drugstores, he had the speakeasies, and then of course the not so good business with Mr. Wolfsheim.
Yeah. And I think it's better like kind of shown in the movie because you get more of like what the speakeasy or like the place that they meet for lunch is, and it's very much like an underground kind of like gambling spot with flappers and lots of rich people who will waste their money on gambling or will spend their money on God knows what. And it was also interesting because Tom was there, which he's a rich man in New York, so he fits right in, but you almost like wouldn't expect it from like some of the other things that like I mentioned about him in the book, I think.
There also is the commissioner. Lots of powerful
and the
people
governor.
were there.
The governor.
Yeah. Kind of like Gatsby had them all in his pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, in the beginning of the book, Gatsby got pulled over, but he just had to show this card and then he was fine.
Mm-hmm. Because he had like a deal with the commissioner or something. Yeah. And they also, all of those people go to his parties. Like these giant parties that he throws every single weekend without fail, that probably cost him like a lot of money, but he keeps throwing them because so many people keep coming into his giant house and they have a fun time. And it even says, it does also say on, or like part of the let me backtrack for a second. I think that part of the reason why he throws the parties is because it says on page 84 in the book that, like, I don't remember who says it. It's probably Jordan. It's Jordan. He says, I think he half expected her to wander into one of his parties some night. So, like, with Gatsby living right across the bay from Daisy, it seemed that he wanted, like, you could tell he wanted Daisy to come to his house, to see him again, to rekindle their love, and come to one of his parties.
No, another thing that's interesting is, again, in the very beginning of the book, Jordan, like, says, oh, you have to know Gatsby. But then, I know that Daisy was like, Gatsby, as in, like, could have been her past lover, but she didn't actually know him or know of him.
Yeah.
So that was interesting as well. Especially if he's throwing all these parties.
Yeah.
How would she not know him?
Yeah, it's like, he's right across the bay. And, like, he's not far away at all. And it could just be something that maybe Tom almost, I don't want to say keeps her that shelter, but, like, almost in a way, like, keeps them in their own little bubble of their house, in their own little social circle, and he gets to go out and do these things, but doesn't let her go out all the time. Maybe that's why she doesn't know. But
I feel like they're kind of not blinded, but they don't really pay attention. They don't, they're ignorant to the fact of, like, what's around them. I know that is also seen with the Valley of Ashes. As they're, like, going through there on their train, they don't really look at everybody there. Because I know in the movie there was some, like, construction going on, like, right outside the big city.
Yeah. It's very much like where kind of like the working class of New York and of, like, the 20s live, because it's, like, a very polluted area. There's, like, all the people that live there do hard work. Like, they don't, like, have these, like, trust funds or giant inheritances like Tom probably had, or, like, they don't do these kind of, like, underground businesses like Gatsby does just to get a lot of money. They have, like, small businesses, or, like, they work on the railroad or coal mines or something, or...
Thank you for listening to The Pages We've Turned in The Great Gatsby, and a huge thank you to our sponsors, David Vinci and Chris Lentz.
Make sure to come back next week where we talk about the pages we turn about Frankenstein.
Bye!